Our next guest says that the left's claims about income inequality being a root cause of America's problems are flat out wrong. He says it's actually income equality that is becoming the problem. Here to tell us more about the damaging impact of welfare expansion is former Texas Senator and now Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, Phil Gramm. Welcome, sir. A real privilege to have you with us, Senator.
Well, I'm glad to be with you. Yeah. I think the point that is important to start with is that in 1965, when the war on poverty started, we were providing about $9,700 of transfer payments to the bottom 20% of income earners in America. Today, that has risen to $45,400 on average to every bottom income quintile family in America. And during the same time, the percentage of work age people in the bottom 20% of income earners that work has plummeted from 68% to 36%.
Yeah. You wrote this great piece in the Wall Street Journal, and it just said why this decades-old narrative it really just falls apart. 269% increase between 1967 and 2017. You know, it's so intentionally misleading, Senator, and it's really damaging the economy, right?
Well, and what is more important is that the after-tax income of middle-income workers grew by only 154% during that period. So that what has happened is that transfer payments are far outpacing income of working people on an after-tax basis. And as a result, we have a situation today where the bottom 60% of income earners basically have very similar incomes.
Yeah, it's the same. So it's basically the same. And, you know, one of the other things, Senator, that I know that you've pointed out in some of your previous work is that when they make this claim, they take the gross income of people who work to do the calculation, but they exclude the value of the welfare payments when doing the calculation for those folks who are on welfare. It's fundamentally misleading, isn't it?
Well, they do two things that have a very substantial impact on our measure of poverty and inequality. Number one, they don't count 2/3 of all transfer payments as income to the people who get the transfer payment. So that, for example, they don't count refundable tax credits, even though you get a check from the Treasury. They don't count food stamps, even though you get a debit card that you can buy groceries with. They don't count Medicaid when government pays your health care bills or rent subsidies. They don't count over 100 federal, state, and local transfer payments as income to the recipients. Secondly, they don't deduct taxes. So that you have a situation where you have a gross distortion, so that the census says that the top 20% of American earners earn 16.7 times as much as the bottom 20% get. But in reality, when you count all transfer payments as income to the recipients and you reduce the income of people who pay taxes because they don't ever see the money's withheld from their checks, the difference is not 16.7 to 1, but 4 to 1. Now, look, you can argue in a free society that you need more redistribution. I don't agree with it, but you can argue it. But it's a different argument than saying we need it. The ratio is 16.7 to 1 rather than 4 to 1. And on the poverty rate, before the pandemic, the poverty rate was 12% on the official measure, but if you count all transfer payments, it was less than 3%.
You know, and the numbers are absolutely staggering. And then, of course, you wrote that because of the surge in welfare payments, only 36% of the bottom quintile of Americans work. That's a decrease of about 40% since the late 1960s. You know, Senator, I talk to a lot of Democrats who still don't understand how Trump, with all of his issues, could get elected. They still don't understand how the Republicans have managed to become attracting kind of a populist movement. They've made this sort of transition. But isn't this really central to it? The fact that people are waking up to the fact that they're working their whole lives, but you have this, but they're making less, and they're making the same amount as people who don't work at all because they're paying for these welfare benefits.
Well, look, you can imagine if you live in a middle-income neighborhood, you work, your wife works, you're struggling to make ends meet, you got a child in college, and you've got somebody down the street who's not breaking a sweat, and they're just about as well off as you are.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, this was part of the Reagan Democrats. It
like the Blue Dogs.
I think of the economic explanation of populism under Trump, and you're seeing it today among Hispanics. Polls, because Hispanics now make up 21% more of the American middle class than you would have them in the middle class if they were chosen at random.
Right.
They make up a smaller share of people in the bottom 20%.
Yeah.
So they're very much affected by what is happening here in terms of...
And that may be one of the reasons why we're starting to see them trend more and more toward that Republican side. Former Texas Senator Phil Gramm, a real privilege, again, to have you on the show. Thank you so much for breaking that down for us.
Let me mention one thing. This book, hold on, let me get it in the picture.
Yes.
I get it in the picture. But in any case, The Myth of American Inequality, out, you can buy it on Amazon, you can buy it at a big bookstore. It tells the whole story and presents basically a rebuttal to many of these arguments.
It is a great read. It is a great read, and we appreciate you, Senator Gramm. Thank you so much for being here, sir.